Total War has a problem, and it's called fear of innovation. There was a time in Total War history when everything seemed possible. The year is 2009, and Empire Total War sees the light of day. For the first time in the series' history, Total War offered a near-true globe-spanning map, and at least on a conceptual level featured most continents out there, from Europe to the Americas, India, and various trading and resource hotspots all over. Even more than this, we finally had the ability to play out awesome naval battles across the seas, making the ocean an important theater of war in and of itself, not just for battles, but also for sabotaging and raiding your enemy's trade routes. The battlefields themselves felt more modern than ever, not only featuring graphics that were leaps and bounds beyond the last title, but that attempted something of a revolution, namely gunpowder warfare, which somehow, by some miracle, was actually really fun to play. Now, Empire wasn't perfect. It was and continues to be a buggy mess, and development was effectively ended only 1 year later. This is of course when Napoleon Total War came out, in 2010. Now this is a true gem, fixing virtually everything mechanically wrong or buggy with Empire, while polishing the visuals even further. Being essentially an expansion, it didn't add anything drastically new, and it did arguably shrink the scope of Empire, but it offered a highly polished and detailed experience that seemed a natural progression of it. After Napoleon came one of the most highly regarded Total War titles ever made, Shogun 2. And I don't know about you, but Shogun 2, despite not offering my favorite setting, still blew my socks off in every way. It somehow managed to create a bit of a mix between the old Total War and new, sporting not only amazing visuals, but still included naval battles, awesome field battles, new and innovative tiered siege battles, technology trees, re-implemented family members and trees, and did it all in a mostly polished package. Of course, all of these games were kind of put into one and the same in the fantastic Fall of the Samurai expansion, taking us to the age of modern gunpowder in the 19th century, pitting old against new. The reason why I'm mentioning these games in particular, the era between 2009 and 2012, is that I feel that this is a Total War golden age in and of itself. Normally we talk about Rome and Medieval 2 as those golden games, but honestly, with some hindsight, I think Empire, Napoleon, and Shogun 2 can all be named thus as well. And I really believe the only reason they're not counted as such among the fans is because of the egregious lack of modding possibilities that we had earlier. These games, although they certainly have their fair share of awesome mods, don't really sport the same amount of scope of mods as the previous games. But what they lack in mods, they certainly make up for in daring. I said earlier that Total War fears innovation, and this is why. It doesn't seem to be trying as hard anymore to take those big leaps. This is a paradoxical statement, I realize that. After all, we do find ourselves in an age where Total War has embarked on its arguably most innovative adventure ever, with the Warhammer series doing stuff the series has never seen before, and not just in terms of battles or units either, but in sheer scope. The Immortal Empires campaign for Warhammer is by far the largest and arguably deepest campaign they've ever made, and that is a concept and achievement worthy of praise in its own right. But for people like me, who's been with the series for almost 2 decades now, what I love about the series, and what I dreamt that the future of Total War games would hold, has just not come true. Whereas the 2000s and 2010s saw Total War journey from 270 BC all the way up to 1870, not much has changed in the past 10 years of Total War, and arguably what has changed has not really been for the better. Even in the innovative Warhammer games, we no longer have naval battles, which especially in Immortal Empires would have been awesome. Our campaigns have in many ways been simplified rather than deepened, focusing now more on a single unique faction mechanic than deeper campaign features that apply to all factions at the same time. Back in the day, the games between Empire and Shogun 2 saw the rise of motion capture for Total War battles, and even though some of them certainly looked funky, the concept was never truly realized to its potential. And now, not only is motion capture seemingly out the window, but those awesome, organic feeling battles of Medieval 2 are replaced with much more arcadey feeling ones. Don't get me wrong, they look amazing in Warhammer 3. But I tell you, look at Napoleon. Like, this is literally a 12-year-old game here. It came out only 5 months before I met my wife back in high school, and it still looks absolutely fantastic. Like, I really mean that. In some ways, in terms of pure polish and image clarity, Total War visuals somehow peaked all the way back in 2010, as I quite literally find Napoleon to remain perhaps the most beautiful Total War game of all time. No, perhaps not the most realistic or detailed, but still, arguably the most beautiful in terms of presentation. And this goes for everywhere, by the way. Just look at this campaign map. Honestly, if Napoleon had released in 2022, from a Total War competitor looking like this, I don't think anyone would have been disappointed with the graphics. And even though it would have possibly seemed weird coming from Total War itself, a few visual upgrades in terms of faces, perhaps animations, and some detail or effects would make this a current gen looking title in no time. I really believe Total War changed in 2009 with Empire, and something similar is rather hard to imagine happening again. An even bigger change would perhaps be to introduce air-to-air combat in a World War I setting, but I have no idea what that would look like, or even if this would be desirable. What I do want though, is for Total War to return to the setting of Empire, and to try again, to bring a much better game out of the gate, to expand upon it over years, not just one, and to even take that Immortal Empires approach. Perhaps expand the map with time, allows to play 8-player multiplayer, bring more global and unique governmental and trade mechanics for all factions over time and not just at launch, and bring back the animation depth to the battles. For when it comes down to it, this second golden age of Total War between 2009 and 2012 was not a given. Like I said, Empire remains a flawed game, but Empire was also so ambitious. It included so many cool and new mechanics and features, and if it just received an update or remaster, it could arguably be the best vanilla Total War of all time. And that doesn't even cover the cut content or possibilities here. As I covered earlier this year, Empire was actually supposed to be a lot deeper than it became. We're talking royal marriages, Holy Roman Empire mechanics, disasters, diseases, and just so much more. Now the hard truth is that a fully realized Empire Total War, say one remastered by Feral Interactive, which updates the graphics, fixes all the bugs, reinstates cut features, and possibly even opens the game up for even more modding than in the past, would, by virtually any metric, have the potential to be the best Total War period. And I think that says something when the foundation here is 13 years old. Total War is one of my favorite game series out there, and certainly one of the series I've spent by far the most time on. It's therefore even sadder to think that the last game which I personally consider a fully fledged Total War title was Attila, which now is a staggering 7 years old, meaning that the original fanbase, or at least the segment which enjoyed Total War for what it was and what it covered, has not truly been catered to in a lifetime worth of gamer years. I think it's rather sad that this video has pinned its hope more on remasters of older titles than actual fully fledged new games. And perhaps Creative Assembly will announce or even release a grand new historical title in the next year. I certainly hope so, but whereas a new title can be both amazing or disappointing, we already know what a game like Empire was like, and can only imagine what it would be if it actually worked optimally, or even had more modding options. Feral Interactive opened the modding possibilities and more with Rome Remastered, and even though Empire might not be next, chances are they will do something similar with more Total War games. And I know that when that time comes, I'll definitely be here for it. Total War games are not without innovation then, as the games do change from title to title, but the lack of changes come when we're talking about meaningful innovation, positive innovation, and the abundance of it. I've yet to be as amazed with a Total War game as I was with that amazing campaign scope from Empire, or those awesome battles and meaningful changes, like naval bombardments in Shogun 2: Fall of the Samurai, or even the trains on the campaign map from the very same game. And all I want, and I don't think it's too much to ask for at this point, is for a historical title to look at changes like these and add even more. Cause I think Total War fans are ready for that historical title that actually feels as deep and dedicated as the Warhammer games. Cheers.